Hey everybody, Stu Smith and Jeff Nichols here, back with another tactical fitness report. And today we're going to talk about mistakes. To err is human and we all make mistakes. I all personally have learned a lot from other people's mistakes and tried to avoid them. So maybe you can listen to this little show that Jeff and I are going to do and learn from the mistakes we've seen, we personally experienced in your training. So, Jeff, let's start it off with strength training, right? Well, where have people, that either you've trained or that you've picked up, or maybe even your own self when you first got started? What were some of the common mistakes that you've seen?
Yeah, I think that probably like as far as strength training is concerned, the probably one of the more common mistakes is that guilty as well. And this is like not us and certainly not me throwing mud
Hmm.
as one of the biggest mistakes that I've made consistently. And I see people still do when they're young or they're new to this training. I say let's new means let's say within the first couple of years, okay? Because that's really what's still pretty new. Is that like we tend to look at mentors or people you admire, or even like when I grew up, it's like I saw guys in the gym. I was 12, 13 years when I started going to the gym, and I was seeing guys that were probably in late teens, early 20s, and they're like big guys. And not only it's like I knew I couldn't do the weight that they could do, but I saw them in there, hours and day, their ability to stay to accommodate that much work volume was because they had been putting the years in. And I remember, and I think this is this is probably one of the reasons why so many people lose favor right away in weight training, especially like after New Year's or whatever it may be, is like they jump in and they take on the same work volume as like everyone else, and time and duration, and they get so sore, so overtrained right away. And one of the more, and again, why do I say this? Because when you're really sore, you don't move well.
Oh,
And that's probably one of the things you really want to focus on when you're new to training is like move well, move as well as you can, learn. And it's really hard to learn when you're really sore and you've overtrained right away. So that I think that's probably for me from strength training is that guys, men and women, young and old, whatever it may be patient when it comes to strength training, because you can make a simple analogy just like food, right? It's like, hey, you have a huge plate of food. You may not have the stomach yet or the size or the ability to eat that huge plate of food. And if you do, it's gonna be really uncomfortable. It might make you sick, that sort of thing. It's a silly analogy, but it's like weight training is the same thing. It's really hard to tell you guys to take it easy and be moderate about your training, because we know that the goals you're trying to attain are really you need to get to that point. So I guess that's along of it is like we know that you need to at some point be able to carry that much work volume, but it's not in the first couple of weeks, and certainly maybe not in the first couple of months. It might take you a year to be able to do that. So just be patient with those weights.
yeah, that's a good point. I had an interesting question the other day because my book, I have a book, The Complete Guide to Navy SEAL Fitness. I've been selling for years. People have been doing it for years. The subtitle is 12 Weeks to Buds. And somebody asked, surely you don't, you need more time to train for buds than 12 weeks. And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. I said, this is just a 12-week cycle.
Yeah, this is
It
the
may
book.
be, it may be a year or a year and a half of training. Um, but in fairness, it kind of depends on what your athletic history is, where you are physically when you grab one of those books. If you're, any book is not a personalized training program. Any workout that you find online, that you just wind up to go, just try to go do, may not be personalized for you. And you may need to tailor some of those reps and sets and weights and distances and speeds because it's not made for you. So you have to be smart with that. And I think a lot of people find a book or an article or something like that that has a workout in it. Let's say like the Murph, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
has 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats in it. But they've never done a pull-up workout with more than 25 pull-ups in it, or maybe they
Yeah.
can only do sets of 5, and, that's not a workout to do, that
Yeah.
if your volume, your current volume is 15, 20 reps of pull-ups in a workout, don't go jump into a workout that requires you to do 100 of them,
Yeah.
right? That's going to hurt you. So I think a lot of people, take a book or an article or some workout that they find, or their buddy's workout. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Go find a
Yeah. Yeah.
buddy that, hey, this is what I've been doing for years, and you're just getting started. That's not a workout you need to match him pound per
You bet.
pound, rep for rep with, because you're just going to just get hurt. And I think that's probably the big 3 for me. People just finding workouts somewhere and applying it to their current situation where, they may not be ready for it at all.
Yeah. And even like I'm not a psychologist, but just from my personal psychological experiences as a coach and as a participant, we'll call it, I really want to encourage those of you that are novice or getting back into it as well, to realize that, I'm trying to see if I can explain this properly. We know that there's a real emotional investment to going down these paths, to even just make the choice to go, I want to be a SEAL, or I want to be a Ranger, I want to be a SWAT officer, whatever it is. That's a real emotional investment. So it's also one of those things to kind of protect that fragile sort of introduction of going, okay, if you bite off more than you can chew unknowingly, like, because no one has said, hey, just modulate your beginning, like don't jump right in like what we're saying. But a lot of things too, what happens is I have a firm belief that there are probably a large number of individuals that make these initial decisions, jump into these very robust workout and training programs right away, and then go, oh my God, I don't have what it takes to do this. So then they couldn't be more wrong. It's just they just haven't had enough time to acclimate to that volume. So physical aside, because the mental aspect of these selection programs are so robust, it really is in your best interest to start slow, build, and then you'll really see what the human body is capable of. Because even Stu and I, like, there are plenty of people in this world that could take Stu and I and put us in a gym, they could put us through their workout,
Oh yeah.
and it would just thrash us. Because maybe we're not acclimated to that style of training or whatever it may be. So we're not immune to it, but because what we're talking about is the sphere of tactical training and selection. We know that. So we're saying, hey, it's not just the physical. Be mindful that we want to see you guys succeed. And one of the quickest ways for you to get down on yourself is to bite off more than you chew, because you just don't know. And so now we're telling you.
That's a good point. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they just happened to ask me about my journey. And I said, you want to know the long story or the short story? I'll spare you the long story. But, my first fitness test I ever took in the military, I failed. I came into the Naval Academy about as maxed out as an athlete as I could be for the sport I wanted to play, which was football. Right. But I was not in military fitness shape. Completely failed my first fitness test. I maxed the second fitness test 6 months later, though. So I figured some stuff out. I didn't even have a thought of being a SEAL at this point. It wasn't even a part of it. And then, later on, I got feeling a little bit better about myself. I went to a SEAL PT, got completely trashed. Last runner of the group. I mean, you name it, complete failure.
And this is the Naval Academy.
Yeah, Naval Academy, like pre-training guys.
Yeah, like, it's like serious. It's not like me like training for it like in college. Like, you're like Stu Smith, show up at Naval Academy. Here's this big thing to bite into.
Right.
Naval Academy
it's led by
it's
led by an active duty SEAL. And he's he's just like lighting us up. And I remember failing at flutter kicks and running, but anyway, I kept going and I kept going, and I got better and I got better. And about a year later, I was finally able to hang with some of these workouts and not be last, and then by the time I was a senior, I was leading them and doing a lot better. So it was a journey, right? I mean, you can't jump into these things and think you're going to be killing the PST on day one,
Yeah.
you know, because
Yeah, there's no,
it takes
folks,
time.
there's no 13-year-old Navy SEALs or 14 or 15 or so. So understand this, as much as we understand how badly, deeply, for whatever reason, they're all great reasons why you 18, 19, 17, 16-year-old, whatever it may be, really, really want to be a SEAL, a Ranger, a Special Forces, Marshal, whatever. Understand that your physiology is going to adapt really, really well, as long as you keep that in mind. Like, listen, okay, we only have so much expectations out of a 17-year-old that wants to be a SEAL. The expectations are what a 17-year-old should be able to do, not what Stu and I have been doing this for a long time, right? And that's what we're trying to tell you is like, and as a coach, I've really had to learn to not be, well, why aren't you able to do this? I can do it. I'm 41. It's like, well, that's exactly why I can do it so well. Is
Yeah,
because we've been doing it for so long. So that's a really bad position as a coach for me to even say.
sure.
So just keep in mind, guys, like, here's the deal. If you're 17, 16, 15, and you're putting in consistent work and you're able to see improvement regularly, you are on track. You're on track. And then you're going to end up coming across Stu or I, and then be able to really reappropriate your effort once you mature a little bit. And then you're going to go, holy crap, I can do this. Yes, you can.
All right. So more strength training mistakes, calisthenics and weights. You know, calisthenics is a resistance training exercise. It is a strength training exercise at first, right? Your first
True.
pull-up, I promise you, will be a strength movement, right? I mean, when you get your first one, you're going to put all you can into that first pull-up. Now, when you get your 20th pull-up, you have graduated into the muscle stamina zone.
Yep.
So there is a journey with the way that process works. But calisthenics can make you strong. Weights can make you strong. You know, moving hay bales can make you
That was
strong.
me.
I
Yep.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's
My first weight room was a dairy farm.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I mean, living can make you strong. You know, especially when you're doing things, you know, with resistance. And a push-up is actually about 50 or 45% of your body weight, you know, when
Mm-hmm.
you're doing a push-up.
Yeah.
So that is,
If you don't believe him, just get on a leaning rest on a scale. When
yep.
I get on a leaning rest on a scale, right now my body weight, it's 152 pounds.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
I'm 205, something like
Yep,
that.
there you go. So
So
yeah. So anyway, it is a resistance exercise. And where a lot of people go wrong is they think calisthenics you can just do every day. And, you know, if there is a limit of time, I guess, that you can do that, you know, but once your volume starts getting really high and you're talking about 100 pull-ups and a couple hundred push-ups and those type of numbers, you need recovery for the next time you work that muscle group. So the last thing you want to do is do like a strength day on Monday where you incorporate bench and overhead and stuff like that. And then the next day you do 200, 300 push-ups. And then the day after that, you do another upper body day, you know, which, you know, I've seen so many training programs, you know, that kids are doing. They send me to, hey, can you take a look at this, see if it's all right? And I'm like, why are you doing this? This is
yeah,
awful. You know, you're not recovering. And even a 17-year-old kid needs to recover from that kind of volume. So
yep,
treat calisthenics like a lifting day. You know,
yeah,
you would not bench press 5 days a week. So don't do push-ups 5 days a week.
yeah. Like admittedly, right, in some regards, right, I'm a less believer in this in some regards, but I say, yeah, the 18, 19-year-old kid heals faster.
True.
You know, hormonally, they might have a bit of an advantage, but I always say, like, for me, I heal extremely fast because I know, like, my level of stimulus I'm allowing myself. But, and my eating and sleeping is way better than it was when I was 18 and 19, as it should be. But my
Same.
point is, like, calisthenics and weight training complement each other extremely well. And so, if just like what Stu is saying, recognizing that, you know, if you're standing back, they may look the same to you. Like, what's the difference between doing 300 push-ups as opposed to doing, you know, a bench press type workout? Well, the stimulus is very similar, but they're not, right? You know, your body is interpreting it differently. But what is similar is you have to heal from it. And just understand that, here's the thing too, it's something to take note of, and I'll just get off on this, is that, you start working out regularly, you should start noticing about how much time it takes for you to kind of get back to, okay, I can give max effort. That is the one thing that I want you guys to start paying attention to. It's like, okay, well, normally it's like, my DOMS, my delayed onset muscle soreness lasts 36 hours and then it tends to subside. If you start bunching all this weight training together and calisthenics together, whatever, any training, and you see that delayed onset muscle soreness is prolonged to 48 and beyond, that is the stimulus, like, especially for you young guys. Because it's like, are you typically in a state of soreness? Yeah, you might be. But is it impeding your ability to train, right? Is it really doing that? And so that's where it's like, I look at calisthenics and weight training, they complement each other, because it's like, hey, we're not necessarily saying we don't want you to train hard, but sometimes you can throttle back, and that might be calisthenics. But even throttling back because you just came off of like a 300 push-up, a 200 pull-up, and one day that's tough. So you just got to assess a little bit, but just be mindful and let yourself heal.
Yeah, that's a good one. One last thing on this too. Jeff and I were talking about this before we were airing, as I'm doing some workouts with my son who's 17, and we're on this really fun split routine where we do an upper body day followed by some cardio, and a lower body day followed by fast cardio, sprints, more dynamic stuff, and then a sports day where we play basketball, throw hoops, throw the discus, whatever we feel like doing that day. Do some mobility work, something like that. And so we're kind of, your splits matter. And if you think about what we're doing, is we're not doing another upper body day until 1, 2, 3 days later. So we've actually recovered from any of that trauma that we've created from weights or high rep calisthenics, because we're doing a little bit of both, until the next time we're doing upper body, we're ready to do upper body again. So your splits do matter. So every day, not so good. Every other day, maybe might be able to do an every other day type of thing. I wouldn't recommend an every other day leg day too often, right, just because your legs are just so, so much more muscle mass involved, and it requires probably another day of recovery. Sometimes I'll do like a Tuesday and a Saturday leg day.
And that's, and I know that I get a lot of questions about, hey, Jeff, why do you appropriate an entire day to biceps or triceps?
Yeah.
It is simply about my rationale for that is about, I would say about 80% is because of that. It creates some, because when it comes to legs day, back day, and a pressing day, it's robust. Okay. Not that you're still not using those same muscle groups when I'm doing shoulders, triceps, and biceps, but they become, a secondary contraction to the bicep.
Sure.
Allows the nervous system to chill out, allows some more healing to happen. And that's not to say you're not going to put days in there too, but just understand that, like, Stu and I are trying to get you to work out as hard as possible, as much as possible. And the way to do that is appropriate those splits as we're talking about. And that's what we're encouraging you guys to do.
Yeah. A mistake I made a few years ago, and we realized it probably about in the first month of a heavy lift cycle. We started off our heavy lifting cycle like full body days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? And we did Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday cardio, right? And it was all non-impact cardio. It was kind of easy, nothing too much, some mobility thrown in there. And I tell you, we were just wrecked. I mean, we just never really recovered from that. So then all we did to fix that was we just started doing upper body, lower body split routines. And that changed everything. Everybody's upper body's days were better. Everybody's lower body days were better, and people were starting to see better growth, so I like to experiment with ideas and see what works, but I also like to learn what doesn't work. And for me, some of those full body routines, now they're okay every now and then, but I wouldn't do them in that kind of a cycle where you're doing them 3 days a week, because a couple of weeks of that you're going to feel wrecked.
Yeah. I always say there's no bad exercises, and there's rarely a bad workouts that are written. It's just execution and appropriation of them. Like that's really what it comes down to. It's like, are my bicep curls or bench press or squats better than the ones that Stu? Like, no, they're the same exercise. And again, it's like you guys might look back and be like, well, yeah, you and Stu have different approaches. No, we don't. We just, well, I mean, we have the same goal. We have the same starting point. We just have two parallel routes, and they're just appropriation of stuff differently. But essentially, it's the same stuff.
I like to think of it as a different choreography.
There you go. Yeah. It's the same dance routine, just a different choreographer.
Same music, just different choreography.
You bet. So true. Yeah. So again, kind of what stemmed, kind of created this conversation was like, okay, hey, Stu, we should probably tell everybody when this veil of social distancing begins to become less and less, or it's non-existent, and it'll probably happen pretty quickly. It'll probably happen over the course of probably 3 weeks, across the country, where it's like all of a sudden it's like kind of, I'm doing air quotes, folks, back to normal. And then everyone has this like, oh, I got to go right back into training where I left off, or like, that's why we're having this conversation with you guys, because
imagine what the gym's going to look like.
Oh man.
The first day it's open.
Madness.
Right.
So don't be that, because here's why, and this is why we're saying this. We genuinely care. We're saying this because we know how motivated you all are. Truly. I understand. Stu understands.
You want to get back and lift. I get it. Yeah.
It's he or she, he or she, whatever you want to say, that those first 3 weeks of getting back into training that appropriates it correctly and doesn't go immediately into overtraining is the one that's going to really see the success and get like, they're like, oh man, it took me like 4 weeks and I'm right back to normal. Unless probably you start right back to the stimulus that you left off. And again, everyone has different situations, because some people have more robust home gyms or activities or whatever it may be. So we're just making the blanket statement of saying, hey, listen, we know you're excited. We're excited too. We're excited for you. But take it easy for the first couple weeks. Get your feet back in the water before you put the screws back to yourself.
Let me give you an example. If your gym shut down at week 8 of a program that you're on, right, and you haven't been able to lift, all you've been able to do is calisthenics and run, right, which is a pretty fair statement. A lot of people, that's all they have, maybe some dumbbell activity or TRX stuff, which is all good too. I would not start back off on week 9 in the gym is really what we're saying.
Agreed.
Go back to week 1 and just start it over.
Agreed. Totally agree. Because, when this thing kicked off, I guess everything, when everything got shut down, like those are the questions. Everyone was like, well, I'm at week 5, I'm at week 2, I'm week 7, I'm week 8. And we were answering questions like, oh, well, this is well, now we're all on the same page. Now enough time has passed where it's like, I don't care what program you're on, unless you are like myself, for example, where I have a full gym at my house. And if I wanted to continue in selection, I could have. But even just because I wanted to experience what you guys are experiencing. I haven't actually, I touched weight, like fairly robust weight. I squatted the other day, pretty good volume, but that's the first time I'd done that. But point is that we're all in the same boat. The best advice I think Stu and I can offer any of you in this is like, hey, the only setback is making the mistake of picking up where you left off. That's a sure thing. So, and especially like you might be like, well, yeah, I shifted completely and went to running. Here's my other piece of advice. Let's say you stopped at week 8 in your resistance training program. You're like, well, all I can do is run. You're in week 6 or 7 of your running program or whatever it may be, and there's maybe 5 or 6 weeks left. Finish what you started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then go back. Okay. Because finish what you started. Okay. And you're going to see, like Stu and I always say, work on your weaknesses and you won't have any. Okay. Don't finish what you started and then change your stimulus.
Yeah, absolutely. You may be really ready for a weightlifting cycle at that point, after going 12 or so weeks without it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do this. We'll combine all the cardio into one section. So run, swim, ruck,
You bet.
whatever. The biggest mistake is, once again, and we're going to kind of go down this road a little bit, is just doing too much too soon, without really thoroughly understanding, what's happening to you, leaving, hey, I used to run in high school. 4 years later after college and you didn't run much at all, you can't start off with a 5-mile run like you did, on day one of your running cycle in high school. So
Yeah.
treat yourself like a beginner anytime you start any of these, and focus on proper technique. Running, swimming, rucking, as Jeff says, movement is everything. Your proper movement's going to make you more efficient in all of them, and that efficiency is going to help you really progress, in the right direction when you are, picking up these activities again.
You bet. Yeah, and I think I'll kind of use my sister as an example. Love her to death. She's an amazing human being, and in all honesty, she was a better athlete than I ever was. She was all state in 4 sports,
Damn.
and her better sports were she was good. She's real good in a lot of sports. But anyway, so she didn't play sports in college, right? She's an executive now. She got the bug. She's always been active. So she took up Ironman, like full Ironmans, right? And some of you may have heard the story. I'll keep it real short, but it's like she had done Kona, she had done full Ironmans. She got remarried. In that time, she basically took 4 months off of like new family life, right? So she's like, oh, I'm gonna start training back again. She picked it up right where she left off.
And only 4 months. This is only 4 months of a highly conditioned
extremely
athlete.
like really like she's a real good athlete, right? And someone that you're like you think, hey, she'll be able to pick up pretty robust volume right away. She's fractured her femur. She got stress fracture in her femur within the first couple of weeks.
Wow.
And that's from someone that's been, like was riding, 200 miles a week.
That's not over. It's not heavy going into this.
Right?
Yeah.
And she, life changed, and she put on, maybe she put on 6, 8, 10 pounds or whatever it may be. But then that's the thing too. So I'm saying this not to like, highlight my sister, but it's highlight you all. It's like Stu and I don't know what physical changes have undertaken for good or bad over this time. Like, maybe you have had to be more sedentary than you'd like. Maybe you've put on weight. Maybe so. That all being like, we don't know, the best option we can offer you is, hey, take the knowledge of the know-how into your beginning again, but not the volume.
Yeah, absolutely. Oops.
Lost you.
No, I can hear. I can see you still.
There we go. Yeah. I have a tendency to talk with my hands and knock my headphones out.
Jeff and I did a podcast where we came up with an assessment tool. You guys should watch that. I'll put a link for it in the description below. But yeah, reassess yourself. Just see where you are. There's nothing wrong with, hitting the lifts, hitting the calisthenics, doing a PST, right? And just see where you are, right? Yep. And who knows, a few of those elements may have gotten better, a few may have gotten worse, but now you know what you need to focus on. Whatever those are. I think, assessing yourself regularly is a smart thing. Now, it doesn't have to be every week, obviously, but every couple of months, just see where you are and see where your progress is being made. And I think a lot of people neglect that, and they continue working on things they're really good at doing. And next thing you know, they're neglecting stuff that they thought they were pretty good at, but maybe they've lost a step or two, in those activities.
Yeah. And just keep this in mind too. I just think of just like on a global scale. Let's say, even just say United States let's basically combine sport and military right now, because there's so many unifying positive factors that we share in sport and military in terms of training, right? I think I had a conversation with some staff from a university, very good friends of mine, about like, just we were all just communicating, all trying to figure stuff out. So one of the questions they were asking me is like, hey, what would you recommend us do as staff? Because, they're not with their athletes. In the NCAA and a lot of universities aren't even allowing them to have direct contact, even sending programs out, because
Wow.
NCAA doesn't allow them to say, hey, coaches can continue to mandate training. They can't. So they can say, hey, we can recommend you do some things. But my point is this, is that understand that everyone right now has ceased training. And the best advice that I can continue to think of, and I know this is redundant, but it's he or she who can be healthy and begin the training program smartly is the ones that aren't going to get set back and then have to like lick their wounds. And then you're going to miss the season. You're going to miss your PST opportunity potentially, or underperform based on just being too excited. Okay. So the best thing you can do is ease into the water, and then you guys all know, like you'll know when it's time to throttle up. It's only going to be a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, well, that was way better than putting the screws yourself, get shin splints, get overtraining. And then 9 weeks later, you're like, I got to pull back on training, and your deadline still stays the same. Your timeline hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So,
That's real funny that, you mentioned all those little things that occur when you do throttle too quickly. It's not very much unlike all the illness we're trying to avoid. Imagine getting sick right now, especially with what's going around. You're going to be done for months, trying to recover from that kind of lung congestion and, issues there. That's, pneumonia type ailments. Man, that's a hard one to bounce back from, and it takes months. So if you can leave this whole mess healthy and just a little bit detrained, you're way ahead of the ball.
You're in the perfect spot. Like, understand, like, what's the best case scenario is I'm just a little detrained, but I'm really healthy.
Yeah.
And I really mean that. Someone said, well, the best case scenario is I haven't lost. I'm like, everyone's the world paused. No one's getting ahead right now.
Yeah,
because why? Because the timeline of guys enlisting, the timeline of guys going to buds. Buds has stopped training.
Yeah,
Great Lakes is not training.
They're all bumped to the right. I mean, I have guys that were supposed to leave in March that are still here, that aren't leaving until May or June.
This is the only opportunity probably you will ever get where you're like, man, because some of you probably have been training moderate throughout this and are going to see real improvement because you couldn't train hard. What a weird idea.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna do this PST when the veil lifts on us and go, holy crap, like I feel good, right? Because your workload has been moderate and you've gained. And then it's like, okay, so yes, be healthy. Don't be in a big darn hurry, because this is the only opportunity you're gonna get where everything got paused and you didn't lose out, right? And so I'm not trying to say like this is all like a good thing, but I'm very much gonna, from here on out, and I have for a while, I'm just going to keep looking for the silver lining on all this. Like, people got to spend a lot of time with family.
Yeah, you got to. I have done the exact same thing, working out with my son, daily without the normal distractions of work, without his school and sports and homework. I mean, he still has homework and all that, but he's getting it done before lunch, and I mean, his schedules are all jacked up, but they're better for training. And I'm doing his training program. So I've kind of pulled back a little bit from my harder core stuff and, doing his training program on his split routine, which gives me kind of an easy day every 3 days.
Yeah.
So it's been very nice. So I've definitely feel recovered and healthy, so I think that's really important, to not be so overburdened right now with training and not sleeping and not eating well, because all that's going to just reduce your immune system to a level that whether it's COVID-19 or just the common flu, you'll probably catch it.
Yeah. So I guess this is, again, like I say, is like, if you go into boot camp very healthy, the illness or potential for illness, the little bug you're going to potentially pick up at boot camp. If you go into boot camp healthy, pick up the bug, and you get out of boot camp, it's likely you recover quickly. And that's the same idea. Like right now, it's like we don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want to overtrain right now. We just want to put you in the best position to be in like a real solid starting block when this thing is ready to go.
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the last advice I give to people before they leave for boot camp is don't touch your face, wash your hands all the time.
Yeah,
It's the last thing
all the time.
I mean, because you got so many germs coming from all over the nation, all in one barracks, and you're living side by side with each other. And you just
don't chew on your pen caps. Like stuff. Don't bite your nails. Like I'm telling you right now, if you're a nail biter, break the habit. Break the habit right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Before you go to boot camp.
Yep. Hey, everybody's a germaphobe now. So
good.
There you go.
Yeah, keep your distance.
Yeah.
So
all right. So anyway, those are mistakes. And like I said, we're all human. We make mistakes. The best thing to do is learn from them. Like I said, I've probably learned from more mistakes than I've learned from me doing things right the first time throughout my journey. And still, so, there's, if you have seen it occur well with someone else, it may work that way for you. If you have seen it completely wreck someone else, keep note because it may do the same to you. Right. Yeah. So we're all a little bit different, but just you can learn from other people's mistakes more from your own.
Yeah.
That is nothing.
Yeah. And that's again, like we're certainly not perfect. And again, that's what Stu and I our goal is to give you guys the best information in training. Like and it really comes down to a lot of it is you being able to assess how you're feeling, how you're doing through a fairly clear lens. So hopefully this was helpful. And again, I have every confidence that when this thing blows by that, you guys will all just pick up where you left off and we'll all be better off for it, truly.
Yeah. Let's think of it that way.
You bet.
I like that. All right, Jeff. Hey man, thanks a lot for your time and helping me out with this one. And everybody check out Jeff's website, performancefirstus.com, or you can go to mine, StuSmithFitness.com. And we're always there to help out with programming and answer questions as well. So
you bet. Be good to each other.
We'll see you.